Welcome. There's so many people to thank and give credit for my ability to do these scripts because they taught me so much. So we're going to start here and go into simple nodes. We're into our 10th script, I believe, including not including the introduction. We're going to look at integers and numbers. That's it, as containers, and what you could do with them, and why you would have them. And I'm not sure why I have two bifocals here, but I may as well leave them up. Maybe they're influencing both scripts. So let's jump in. We actually grabbed the human plugin. So I think whenever I touch on a plugin, what's funny is I discover a node in another person's script, then I kind of track it down on Grasshopper 3D, visualize till I figure out what it is, and then I don't bring in download plugins until I need them, or I use them quite a bit. So here I just want to show you a little bit with numbers as a container for a number. I took a float here, and I generated something that actually has two decimal places. A nice little tool is throw it through the integer, and boom. If it's close to the ceiling, it's going to go up to the top integer. If it's below that, it's going to drop down to the floor. And you can see that had an effect on this. I'm not sure why. That should have been fine. It was working there a second ago. What just happened? Has an invalid name. Oh, yeah, whenever I leave these, I don't know why I leave these scripts, they seem to default back to variable x, which is not good for actually bringing in anything. So let's bring that in again and see if that's an issue. That shouldn't be an issue. Does not start with a number. Oh, I left a space. You gotta be very careful with that. Spaces can be pretty tricky. You leave a little space in there, it's not gonna read it right. So that should clear it up, and let's see if that makes a difference. There we go. So that takes a value and then converts it to an integer. And of course, that does the same thing as rounding up or rounding down. I think that'll be interesting that you don't have to go to the expression nodes. So when you bring down a math expression node, let me just stick this somewhere. I don't really need it. Oh, it's going to be in the way everywhere. You don't need to go into the maths and type into the expression nodes and bring them in like this, and then go in, double click, and then go into all these little functions and say, okay, what do all these do? Some of these containers function to do a lot of that for you. So as we go through, I will continue. That basically becomes a integer, but it can be stored in a, it still can be stored in a double or a float, whatever you refer to it, and it can be stored as an integer. That said, I'm going to leave that off to the side. Also, I brought in the first sort objects by type. None of these have any outcomes. They're all sitting empty with nothing in it. Empty generic data parameter, empty, empty, empty. But the other, it actually says, oh, you've actually pulled out a digit, a 4, an integer. You've pulled out something. So that's the first use of human. I don't use it for anything, but I guess I'm human, so I should figure out how to do it. Another one I wanted to show is the number, a double storage or a float storage container. So I have an integer here, and I'm intrigued that it goes through and says, okay, we're making that into a float or a double, but there are no decimal places in my panel, which irritates me. So I went in and I found the script for convert to double, and once again, it does the same thing. It doesn't bring up a decimal placing within the panel. I kind of wish it did. So a little stuck on that. And once again, I left the script, and every time I seem to leave this is a weird bug. It seems to be defaulting back to that, which is a pain because then I have to reset my data. So that's awkward that that's happening in the script. But here's the floor. I have an integer, and it says, okay, drop it to the floor. So it doesn't matter if it's close to the next integer or not, or under half. It's always going to drop it to the floor. Even if it was 3.999999, it's going to drop it down to 3. And then I have the ceiling, and once again, this strange default happened here, and I can't say why that is happening. And then I have to bring my data in again. So that's a strange bug I'm experiencing. There's the ceiling, so I can drop that low all the way down to like 3.00001 or below 0.5 at least, and it would still round up. So that said, I'm playing with the containers to actually do some of those things, and I figured, what the heck, I may as well go in and take a look at the expression nodes and see what's happening. And here's the rounding x, which will round down, and this one will round up down to 1 and up to 2. And even though when I read this and I go into here and I look at round, and the round has this strange square parentheses dot d, I thought I could bring in another attribute which it lets me do, but I'm starting to think there's something screwy. And maybe in this file, maybe I have to reset, because even when I go into here and I put in an extra parameter D, and you can see this already defaulted back to this, frustratingly enough, and I have to input that. This X is causing trouble. I can put in D and have that and set it in, and it will still run, but I'm not able to, I'm just going to show you this, I'm not able to throw in that square parentheses dot D square bracket. It says invalid expression, so it's not working for me. It works for me and lets me bring a D in if I just leave it out and then don't put anything in the D. Empty expression. So I'm having a little trouble figuring that out. And once again, this kind of defaulting here is going to be really frustrating for my functions if I can't correct that. I must have something set that's irritating because I don't want to have to do that with all my nodes. Anyway, I got sidetracked because of that, dealing in integers and booleans. But let's move on to the text. Not booleans, integers and floats. This one is right from Arturo Tedeschi. I have to give him credit. I've converted it or just customized it, modified it so it would be kind of mine. He does some very simple. I don't know if you can own scripts that are this simple, but then again, I did learn an awful lot from that text. I went through it several times, and that's the textbook, Algorithmic Aided Design. That's the textbook that really got everything started for me. And he has incredible webinars free online and a great website. I can't say enough about him. That said, I'm just taking panels, and I want to show you a couple of tricks with this. As you type into your panel text, it will go in as text document. You can put it into concatenation and do simply what you were doing for like any Hello World program. So Wickerson Studios, I have to type a space in here, which is hard to see, but there's actually a space here. Without that space, I'm not going to have a space in Wickerson Studios. But I want to show you if-then conditions. There's still text containers. If X is greater than 12, then it will say Wickerson Studios. If not, it will say Studios Wickerson, which is another text document. This is the way they use, and I use expressions for things with text, and evaluate tools for things with text, and I use expression for things with numbers. Don't ask me why. It's just what I do to keep my things a little separate. They then cover a little bit of contains, and I like this. In contains, take a look at all this text. Does this contain Michael? Well, here I want to show you a prime example of yes, it contains Michael true. Now, why over here are all the data grafted onto their own, well, not grafted, but why are they all on their own item list? Boy, my little L is screaming. It's going to say false, 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 true, where Michael is, and then false again. That's because when you go in, you have to learn when you want multi-line data on and when you want multi-line data off. That's a very big thing for getting data to run through these equations. So I'm just going to leave that. And then contains X, it's a little program that you can take a look at. And once again, you could run this through an expression node going into that tool I had up here. Where did it go? This little one. I'm sure there's a function in here, so you don't have to come up with, like it'll tell you what to do. So go into here and say contains, there you go, contains s.p. I kind of want to double check that because these functions are going a little screwy on me this time. This one didn't reset, but contains, does X contain the word arc? So I threw in a standard arc, and I know that's what comes through the panel. It'll analyze everything in there like instantaneously, and this is why computers are so much better than people. They just do it, and they do it in an incredibly speedy way, and then true is the case. And if I change that arc to something different, like if I went in the circle and said, okay, I don't want to have that as geometry, I want circle. Well, circle doesn't say arc, even though technically it is one. It's going to say false. So you got to start playing with the logic on these things. I'm going to leave that at 8 minutes, 9 minutes, and hopefully that came in handy. I'm going to save it over here as a happy blue because I'm content with that. I have to go help my family because they're screaming like monsters. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Get my face out of there. Zoom in. And I'm loading these up on GitHub at Michael Wickerson. You can take a look at those, or M. Wickerson, every 10 scripts I do. And I do have a bit of a following now, so I'm very happy with that. And I think I'm making a little difference to people that are starting out. Hopefully my classes can run online this fall. Thanks very much.